this video, we'll give you the best running back to target in the late third or early fourth round in 2024 fantasy redraft leagues. I'm Jim Coventry with Anthony Cervino of Rotowire. Let's start out with Travis Etienne of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Very interesting player here because in the 2 years he's played, remember, Etienne missed his first NFL season with a foot injury. Etienne's had between 1,440 and 1,484 yards. So very, very similar numbers. However, 2 seasons, completely different. In 2022, when he had 1,440 yards, 255 touches, low number, 5.1 yards per carry, 9 yards per reception, extremely efficient player. Now, last year, when he had 44 more scrimmage yards, he went from 255 touches in 2022, added 70 touches to get those 40 yards. Not so good. We look at that now, 3.8 yards per carry after 5.1. The line wasn't very good, but the line wasn't great 2 years ago either. So there's that. Another thing we want to point out, though, Etienne is a phenomenal running back. Breaks tackles at a high level, yards after contact at a high level, outstanding there. But the problem is his workload, very inconsistent. It's going to be tough to predict him week to week. In the first season he played, 2022, we saw him get heavy work week 7 to 9-ish. After that, all of a sudden, his carries fell down significantly. We could tell the coaching staff had a plan. We can't overwork him. And then last year, we thought it changed. First half of 2023, 19 carries per game. All right, we got what we want. Nope. Last 9 games after the bye, that 19 carries fell to 12.9, despite them not having a decent running back on the roster. They had Dearness Johnson, they had Tank Bigsby, both terrible, yet they still managed the workload. So we're going to need that efficiency we saw in 2022 because it's unlikely the workload is going to remain as high as it was last year because the 2 years we've seen it cut. Now, if you enjoy videos like this, please consider hitting the like button and subscribe to the Rotowire Fantasy Football channel on YouTube. Also, you can check out all of our fantasy football content and rankings by getting a free 2-day trial with no credit card needed. You just head on over to rotowire.com/Jim and you can check out all of our content.
Jim, I'm going to talk about Isiah Pacheco here, and he was one of my favorite running backs going around his ADP. Now, when it comes to Pacheco, I do worry about his overall ceiling compared to somebody like Travis Etienne because of how pass-focused that Kansas City offense is. But Isiah Pacheco brings a very high floor to the table and very few risks, which we'll get into later. Now, last year, Pacheco was 14th amongst running backs in fantasy points per game. But here's a fun stat. He was even busier and more productive from a fantasy football perspective in 7 games without Jerick McKinnon. Now, 3 of those games were postseason games, but it comes out to be he would be 3rd amongst running backs with 20.2 points per game in those games without McKinnon. So what do we know right now? Jerick McKinnon remains unsigned, and the running back depth behind Pacheco is very much questionable when we look at guys like CEH and Deneric Prince, who are probably the 2 most likely to emerge as the RB2s and RB3 in this offense. Now, when it comes to the risk for Isiah Pacheco, we know he's a very violent runner for his size, and I am extremely concerned about his durability. Can we expect Isiah Pacheco to play a full 16-game slate, or do we actually have to factor in the injury concern? I think we do have to factor in the injury concern, which is a big reason why I can't rank him much higher. This offense is going to score points. They're going to be in the red zone a lot, but will that equate to red zone attempts for Isiah Pacheco? Because again, we do know Mahomes has a lot of weapons, especially like a Travis Kelce, who he will target the red zone. But still, last year, Pacheco was 7th amongst running backs in red zone touches with 50, but only 8 goal line carries. Will he see more of those goal line opportunities? Because if he does, I do think we could squeeze a little bit more ceiling out of Pacheco, but I think he might be capped as a projection of the RB 10 to 12 category.
So to finalize this, I do have Etienne ahead of Pacheco. A couple of things. I'm worried about the lack of work for periods of time. That's problematic. I do think Etienne may be closer to the efficiency he saw in 22 than 2023. I think last year was very inefficient. I think he's better than that. Now, the thing that's a wild card here, I fully expect Doug Peterson to have a bigger hand in the offense than he did last year when Press Taylor was pretty much running things. I think Peterson has to realize that whole staff is fired if the offense can't get the job done. So I do think Etienne is used more creatively, even if the touches are lessened. Now, with Pacheco, Anthony pointed out the injuries. And I want to add this. You'll see his games played as a rookie and think he was fine. He had off-season hand and shoulder surgeries that year. And last year, he had an in-season shoulder injury. And this is going to be a compilation of carries. Again, like Anthony said, for a very violent runner. So I am concerned about durability. So I have Pacheco second. Anthony, how do you rank him out?
Yeah, I'm with you here. The difference between these two players, because they both bring the high floor, the difference between Pacheco and Etienne, the reason why I have Etienne higher is because there is a higher ceiling when we look at Travis Etienne. Trevor Lawrence, excellent quarterback, but I don't think we've seen the best of Trevor Lawrence. So, and we know Doug Peterson also wants to feature the running back. He wants to run the football. Now, I get there's always that old adage, well, Doug Peterson wants to run a multi-head monster backfield. He does not have the personnel to do so unless Dearness Johnson or Bigsby take some sort of a step up. So until I see otherwise, this backfield is going to be dominated by Travis Etienne. And for the past 2 years, again, 1 year not as efficient, but he still brings from a fantasy football perspective. And if we see Christian Kirk, he missed some time last year. If he goes down again, Travis Etienne could see a lot of those extra targets going in his direction. So from A to Z, I just like Travis Etienne more. I'm not down on Pacheco. And like I said, when we were talking about him, I worry about that overall ceiling. I think we're drafting him at his ceiling.